Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Ghislaine Maxwell, in 2013, had the audacity to attend a sex trafficking charity event. Meanwhile, we all know what she was up to with Jeffrey Epstein. We all know what she is accused of. And she thought that it was a good idea to go to this event. And furthermore, this event thought it was a good idea to have her. I mean, do these people not have the internet? Are they Amish and we just don't know about it and they don't believe in technology or something? I don't know what other excuse there could possibly be. How could you not know who Ghislaine Maxwell was and who her number one associate is? Or was, I guess you should say now, but let's be very clear. All of these people knew what Ghislaine Maxwell was, what she was up to, and what kind of scoundrel she was. And if it wasn't for Epstein being arrested this second time around, and it wasn't for all of this publicity surrounding the case, these people would have been quite happy to keep these pictures stashed and never have to answer for it. Because, I mean, if you listen to the way most of these people have gone about this sort of thing, when Ghislaine Maxwell has been obviously someone who is in their circle and they try and distance themselves from it, they try and act like we don't know what we see, what the evidence is in front of us, all of these pictures, all of the different parties they would go to together, etc., etc. You can't just act like you weren't close when it's obvious you were. But the fact that she went to a sex trafficking charity event is just, I mean, it doesn't surprise me with her. Part of her whole entire cover story, right? Again, her and Jeffrey Epstein were so brazen that they were willing to go to events like this and show their stupid, ugly faces at events like this, even though they were engaged in the very crimes that these charity events are supposedly raising money to stop or to help the survivors and victims of. It is something that you see more and more the harder you look when it comes to these charitable organizations. And I don't want to malign all charitable organizations, right? I'm sure a lot of them do good work. But I have a bad taste in my mouth considering what we've unearthed when we've dug into this story. It's just it seems like every single one of these disgusting people has some sort of charity that they use as a shield for their behavior. So let's jump into the article by the Daily Mail and see what's going on with Ghislaine Maxwell at this charity event in 2013. She's got some nerve. Ghislaine Maxwell was pictured at charity event to stop sex trafficking before her arrest for procuring girls for Jeffrey Epstein. This article was authored by Keith Griffith. Again, every time we get into an article here or something new breaks in this story, I wonder if we're in some sort of bad book, right? This can't be real. These people can't actually operate this way. They can't be this stupid. And yet here we are. They are this stupid and they think we're even stupider. These people think that they can operate and do these sort of things right under our noses. And there's nothing we can do about it. That's how they felt. And until recently, that's how it's been. But you see a wave recently of people like Ghislaine Maxwell and in, say, the NXIVM case, people like Keith Raniere and Allison Mack and Bronfman. You see them all caught up, and it definitely looks like things are starting to turn when it comes to situations like this. And again, that's because of the public outcry, right? Because of folks like you writing to your senators, writing to your congresspeople, blowing this story up, never stop talking about it, the whole thing. And without that, this story would have again been swept under the rug and lost in the news cycle. Because you all know we have a 24-hour news cycle for the most part. Things come and they go. Even really serious, important things. But this story has had a lot of staying power, and that's a testament to the people who are interested in the story and interested in finding justice. A photo has emerged showing accused sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell at a charity event to oppose sex trafficking prior to her arrest. Maxwell, smiling, is seen at the 2013 fundraiser for Stop the Trafficking of People in New York's Meatpacking District, posing with the group's founder, Celia Dallaverine. So again, they're hobnobbing with, the so-called members of polite society. You got the bipedal serpent, Ghislaine Maxwell, slithering amongst them. God knows what sort of banter she's running with them. God knows how many of them are aware of what she has going on. And I'll tell you what, I don't believe all of these people. Do you even think that, what are the odds that all of these people that were close to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, people that were around them a lot, I don't mean just at dinner parties, I'm talking at the houses, at the various different properties, and spent an ample amount of time with them. How many of them people do you actually believe when they say, I don't know anything about this at all. I mean, I was only with Jeffrey Epstein 17 hours a day for 4 days a week. I don't know, though. I have no idea. I don't believe any of those kind of people. And we see it all the time here with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein and all of these people who had some sort of close relationship with them. She's got some nerve, but I am not surprised, Dallaverine told The Sun. I've come to realize that these people need to appear to be doing good and make people believe it, for sure. They're always trying to show up at an event like this, especially Ghislaine Maxwell after Epstein's arrest, right? She was on a tour. She was on a Refurbish My Image tour. She was invited to Jeff Bezos' little retreats for the special people retreat that they would have, invite only. She was invited to that. She did TED Talk. She did all kinds of stuff. All sorts of stuff. And she would show up at events like this because, again, she wanted it to look like she had nothing to do with anything that has to do with sex trafficking. She was a well-seasoned asset, in my opinion, folks. Somebody that knew her game, knew her craft, and understood a good cover story and a good lie has a sprinkle of truth in it. In July, Maxwell was arrested in New Hampshire and federally charged with enticement of minors and sex trafficking of children in connection with her decades-long association with pedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. The photo from 2013 shows Maxwell posing with Dallaverine, French ambassador to the U.S. François Delattre, French fashion designer Catherine Malandrino, Bic pen fortune heir Bruno Bic, and Baroness Veronique Bic. So that's a who's who, huh? Hanging out with the French fashion designers, the heirs to the Bic pen fortune. And speaking of that, imagine that's where you got your fortune. Your family created the Bic pen. That's a lot of money for that sort of creation. And I think about that kind of thing all the time, not to digress, but I mean, these contraptions, like say a pen or like the toilet paper rolls, these people are making money hand over fist for shit like that. So when you hear about people like, this Bic pen fortune heir, Bruno Bic, and his wife, the Baroness Veronique Bic, well, yeah, how many pens are sold? I'm sure there's a whole lot of pens being sold on a daily basis, and these people are getting their pockets fatter and fatter and fatter. And meanwhile, while they're accumulating an ungodly amount of wealth, an ungodly amount of power, they think it's a good idea to take pictures with Ghislaine Maxwell. You're the heir to this huge fortune, but you don't know who Ghislaine Maxwell is. Nobody in your crew, nobody that is with you has the good sense to check on these sorts of people before you take pictures with them. The charity group funds rescue centers for girls and women who escape sex traffickers so they are not forced back onto the streets. And I give that thumbs up, right? Look, I don't know much about this charity group per se, and hopefully they do good work, right? Hopefully they're doing this and this money is going to what they say it's going to, and they are providing for these girls who have escaped from this horrible, horrible plague that is affecting the whole world, which is sex trafficking. And hopefully they're not grifting this money. And it's hard for me to not be cynical when it comes to these charities, because we've seen so much unearthed when it comes to the Finson files, when it comes to what we've read here in these articles, and just from the general day-to-day behavior of these people. So hopefully this charity group is giving this money to the areas where they say that they're working, because, again, how much of the money actually goes to these causes and how much of it goes to bureaucrats and the people on like the boards, et cetera, et cetera. You know, before I donate to anything, I do a stringent search of that group to make sure that the money is going where they say it's going, because it's unfortunate, but there are way too many grifters, especially in high society, so-called polite New York society. At the swanky fundraiser, Maxwell looked on as Dalatray gave an impassioned speech supporting the group's mission and speaking out against sex trafficking. Well, good for her giving an impassioned speech, but I don't know how anyone at that event could look at Maxwell and not be side-eyeing her and saying, what in the F is this lady doing here? I know who that is. I know what she's up to. And she's at this sex trafficking event? I mean, it takes a huge pair of stones to make a move like this. Maxwell, 58, has been held without bail since her July arrest on charges that she recruited teenage girls for Epstein to abuse in the mid-90s and sometimes join the abuse. She has pleaded not guilty. The investigation into Epstein remains active, leading prosecutors said Tuesday as they argued to keep 40 pages of photos and 40 pages of documents about his survivors a secret from Ghislaine Maxwell. So we talked about this, but it does foreshadow more indictments and a much more vast investigation than they let on even just a few months ago. So it looks like things are moving at a rapid pace within the prosecutor's office, and Allison Moe has shown herself to be somebody with some honor and somebody who really wants to get down and figure out what the hell happened here and bring justice to those who deserve it. And up until this point, we've had a lot of limp-wristed prosecutors who haven't really been willing to get down into the weeds and go to the mattresses. But Allison Moe seems to be a cut above the rest. Manhattan prosecutors say they want to delay giving materials from dozens of survivors cooperating with the government and who will not testify at trial to lawyers for the British socialite, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scumbag and bipedal serpent, you mean? They told the judge in a letter that they want to try to prevent lawyers for Epstein's incarcerated ex-girlfriend, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scumbag, and bipedal serpent, from learning too much about the files until 2 months before her criminal trial next summer. So you know the federal government means business, right? They're leaving her out to blow in the wind. They want her thinking about who she's going to rat on, who she's willing to give up, and what sort of deal she's looking to kick. Because they're going to really go hard here. And when the United States federal government truly is going after somebody to prosecute them, they have a very, very high rate of successful prosecutions or plea deals. And they're the federal government, you don't want to play games like this with them. They will litigate you into the poorhouse, first of all. Second of all, when they have this kind of evidence, it's pretty much a wrap for this lady. I mean, she's going through the motions and she has to defend herself, but this is money wasted in my opinion. And she's in for a big, rude awakening come the trial. The active probe leaves open the possibility of additional arrests. The files are said to include school pictures and bank and travel records. Yeah, look, we know that this large probe, an active grand jury, the Epstein case still being live. It all points to more indictments, more arrests, and more people being held responsible for their roles. And I am pretty convinced that we're going to see that. When we're going to see it, I don't know. I'm not part of the California Psychics Network. I have no idea. But I do think that we will be seeing it sooner rather than later as this grows, and before her trial, by the way, because I think it's going to be more expansive than we even think. Maxwell has hired New York-based lawyer who has previously represented one of Osama bin Laden's henchmen as she seeks to bolster her team ahead of her trial. Bobby Sternheim is described on the website of her law firm, Fazzulo, Braverman and DiMaggio, as a recognized leader in litigating difficult and complex cases, i.e. RICO cases. She's definitely been brought in to help with the RICO case. They know that this is expanding and it's more broad than they even thought. And when they got the 328,000 plus pages of discovery, they truly understood the behemoth that was on their hands. So they brought in some help, a big gun, someone that knows how to litigate when it comes to RICO. And the lawyers for Maxwell are looking like they're ready to really engage in some trench warfare here. Epstein, 66, died in what was ruled a suicide in August 2019 while he was housed at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, a federal lockup adjacent to Manhattan federal courthouses. At the time, he faced federal sex trafficking charges and was held without bail a month after his arrest. Prosecutors want to delay turning materials from some victims over to defense until 8 weeks before her trial, scheduled for July. A message seeking comment was left with lawyers for Maxwell. Prosecutors said defense lawyers have indicated they will oppose the secrecy request. Oh, of course they will. Look, like I said, they're ready to go for it now, especially they got Bobby Sternheim on board. They got a woman who can go into the trenches and really battle with Allison Moe and Maureen Comey and get it on. And that's what they were looking for, right? They knew that with this the 328,000 documents turned over and the fact that there's an ongoing investigation as far as the grand jury is concerned, and the Epstein case, is still open. You know, her legal team is not stupid. They might be a lot of things, but they're not stupid. And they see the writing on the wall. They know what's coming. They're trying to get ahead of it. They're trying to get ahead of it right now. Bring in Bobby Sternheim. That way, they're ready for when these few charges that she has right now bloom like you were growing, watering your chia pet, right? Because it's coming, in my opinion. In its letter, prosecutors said revealing 40 pages of photographs and 40 pages of documents related to Epstein survivors who were harmed after the time span by the charges against Maxwell could jeopardize the government's ongoing investigation and scare other survivors from cooperating. And it could blow a hole in a further charge, a charge that they haven't hit her with yet, right? In a superseded charge to the indictment. So they're going to play it close to the vest. And when the time is right, I think it's going to be a nuclear strike to Ghislaine Maxwell and her hopes of beating this. Prosecutors said charges against Maxwell pertain to illegal sex acts that occurred between 1994 and 1997. But the indictment emerged from a wider probe that went beyond that period. And again, we talked about that, the large scope of this case. It's broad, it is vast, it is wide. And there's a lot of people caught up in it. I wish we had access to those sealed indictments. I wish we knew who was under investigation right now. Now, we can speculate, right? And we most certainly have. The Core Four, most certainly. Jean-Luc Brunel, most certainly. And I believe there's some others. There's going to be some surprises that we weren't thinking of. Or maybe thinking of, but not thinking that they would ever have to face the music. I think a guy like Glenn Dubin is in serious jeopardy, folks. I think he is in serious jeopardy. And obviously that story will be told over the coming months. And as we learn more and more about what went on. And again, remember, we're going to see real soon what the appeals court has to say about the depositions as well. So there is a lot more coming, and we can expect this wild ride to continue on the path of bumpiness, corkscrews, twists, and all other sorts of incredibly crazy turns. Because every time we turn around, there's something else going on in this case where you're like, holy shit, is that for real? Is this really happening? How is that even possible? How didn't anyone know? So it's always something new. And now, as we get closer and closer to the trial, we're going to be hearing a lot more about what was going on as far as the inner workings of the criminal enterprise. We're going to hear a lot more about that, I think, coming forward as other people get arrested, and who knows who is cooperating, right? So as discovery comes closer and more of these documents are released, it is more likely that we're going to find out some things that we had no idea about. So it's starting to heat up, folks. And it's starting to become a situation where it's time to buckle up your seatbelts. We're in for a bumpy ride. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, I'll be back later on with the Daily Drop. I hope you all have a great day.